This is the President McCormack Podcast with your host, Mark McCormack.
On the podcast today, the one, the only Eric Ney. Welcome, my friend.
Hey, glad to be here. Thanks for asking.
Dude, I freaking love doing podcasts, man. It is like so much fun. And you're like a veteran now. I've done a couple, but I'm not a veteran by any means. But it's a lot of fun. It's fun to see where the conversation always goes. Yeah. I mean, I have this philosophy too. I never prep, right? So it's just like conversation, having fun, like hopefully people feel like they're a fly on the wall just between two guys or two girls, or not two girls. There's never just two girls on here. I'm not announcing anything today. But a guest in a house, right? It's just kind of fun. But I think my first question, I don't know why, it just popped in my head, dude. What was it like growing up in Gunnison?
It was the best. I only had 72 kids in my class, so you knew everybody. And there wasn't like a popular group and there wasn't all these segments of your high school class and people felt less than or more than. There were obviously people who did sports and people who didn't, or people otherwise, but I think everyone really got along and you cared about each other. When somebody had an injury or a family illness or a death or something, it was unbelievable how many people showed up. Yeah. 20, 30 people would come to someone's house and be there for them. And so I really love the community. Plus, just the people down there are really good people. And, I grew up on a farm and I had all the freedoms and liberties to, ride four-wheelers and ride horses and go in the mountains every night. And my parents would just hope I was home by a certain curfew every night. It wasn't, they never picked me up. Yeah. I kind of had that freedom.
What was the curfew for you?
My curfew when I was in high school was, I believe it was 12:30. Maybe it was 1.
You have very liberal parents. Mine was midnight on the dot.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. The funny thing is when you'd come home and you'd be really hard to tell your friends like, oh, I gotta leave. And you'd come home thinking they'd be waiting for you. They'd be asleep. Right. On the nights you really want to hang out. And then other nights, like a couple of times I broke it a little bit and they were like both up, like waiting for me at the door. So that's just how it is. And I kind of look forward to doing that with my boys. See how it goes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, curfew was always a funny thing, man, in my family. My parents used to tease me all the time because I was always home at like the stroke of midnight, right? They'd be sitting there at like 11:59 and all of a sudden I'd just be like, like pull the drive and they're like, I don't know how you do it. And I'm
perfect timing.
I don't know either because I just came from Orem or I came from Highland or up the canyon or like Salt Lake. But I don't know. I just had this thing where I was like, hey, I got to be home at this time to keep appearances with the parents and not get in trouble.
Yeah.
But my two little brothers never understood that rule. They were always late and in trouble. And my parents were really easy. If I obeyed my curfew, went to church and got good grades, I could literally do anything I wanted. And I don't know if they listen to every episode, so I'll pop some secrets out there. I had my really good friends in high school were twins, right? And their last name was Larson, and they had an older brother, like a year older than us. And so anytime that I wanted to like stay out later, like till like 1 or 2 in the morning, I would just call my parents at like 8 or 9, right? Not at 11. And I would just be like, hey, I'm going to sleep over at Joe and Rich's. Steve's watching us, or we're going to go up to the canyon and hang out with Steve. And my parents were like, okay, great. And they just go to bed and we'd be out till, freaking 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, just roaming the town. It was like this little like loophole I found. Or we'd always go camping.
Yeah.
And the funny thing with camping, we always, we put up American Fork Canyon, right? But like we would go, but we literally sometimes wouldn't show up until like 5 a.m. Like we'd be heading up there at 4 a.m. after we're hanging out with girls and whoever, right? Getting in trouble, starting fights with other schools, like whatever. And then we'd go sleep up there for like 4 or 5 hours, roll back home around 10 a.m. and then
kids still do that. I have stories like that all the time. People are my nephews and otherwise are like, you really did that? I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Until winter hit.
Yeah, exactly.
It's freaking awesome. Yeah. I don't know if kids still do that. Gosh, I'd be sad if they don't.
I know, but they get picked up from their basketball practice and from their games and there's a lot more focus on safety. Not that that's a bad thing. It's awesome. Yeah. But for us, it was just kind of like, be safe, don't die. See you later tonight.
Oh yeah. We used to like do water slides down like ditches and canals and all that kind of stuff.
We would wakeboard down canals. We'd tie it to the back of a Jeep and ride it down.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's way cool.
Yeah. We did a lot of random stuff. One thing that always surprises people, did something called hooding. You rip a hood off an old car, drill a couple holes in it, put a chain in it, tie it to the back of a truck and run it in fields.
So we did that with couches.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, but they get tore up real quick. I'm sure a hood would last longer.
Yeah. Plus, it's all these jagged edges. Probably crazy. No one got hurt worse, but always a good time.
Yeah. Did you guys film stuff?
We did a couple of times, but it wasn't such an easy thing. You had to take your mom's camera, which is like this big giant, thing. Yeah. It's almost like you were some kind of news reporter or something like that. But we didn't do much of that. Just kind of enjoyed it all and soaked it all in. I remember most of it. So.
Oh yeah. I remember a lot, but we filmed a ton, but it was because we did. So I went to Lone Peak High School, right? So the night, so we did Nightline News.
Oh, cool.
So my friend and I, we actually were like the only two kids that actually had that same class both days. We had A and B day.
Yeah.
And we would edit the news every day for the school and like send it down to the office, right? And they'd play it for everybody, right? So we had like unlimited access to like cameras and editing equipment and computers and mics and whatever we wanted. So every weekend we had a camera. Well, not every weekend, but a lot of the weekends we had cameras. We would remake music videos. Like we did like the ironic music video by Alanis Morissette, 1979, by Smashing Pumpkins. And yeah, we were always filming crap. And
that's fun though. Good experience.
We don't have the film though. That's the thing that sucks. It's like we had so much of it at one point that like no one really cared. And then now that we're older, we're like, where's that VHS? And it was literally like we would record on VHS tapes. For you kids out there, don't worry about it. Yeah. Google it. Yeah, dude, filming was fun. And it was, I don't know. What did you guys do for mischief?
Well, we did a lot of fun stuff. So there was obviously only having a small school. There was a pool of available and attractive young women in the next community over, about 15 or 20 minutes always. And so we were real close to Manti. And so we'd go up there. You maybe heard some communities drag Maine. You run up there and you drag Maine in the cars and you find the gals you like and then kind of get to know them. And then you maybe go to another community another couple of nights. And it was fun. And then a lot of time in the mountains, a lot of camping, a lot of bonfires. Yeah. Always outside doing something. Yeah.
We were outside a lot. We do bonfires a lot and we would go to, you know what Kencraft is? Mm-mm. It's that candy factory that's like up in Alpine.
Okay.
It's like, They like supply like Disney. Like it's weird. It's just like in the middle of nowhere, right? But they have pallets all the time, right? I mean, hundreds of pallets. We'd go up there and steal 10, 20 pallets. And we'd go up to the water towers where those flat concrete ones.
Yeah.
We'd stack 10 of those things and just light them on fire. Dude, we'd have a 20-foot flame coming off that stuff. We get in trouble all the time. Cops would come up. We just disappear. It just burned to ash.
That's fun. Those are good times, though.
Statutes have run on that, but yeah.
Oh, yeah. There's a few nails up there from you guys.
But yeah, man. And then our favorite thing to do for mischief was, there's two things. We used to steal pumpkins during Halloween and then throw them at things, right?
That was always fun.
That was fun. That was seasonal, though. And then we would do power boxing. You ever done that? Mm-hmm. Power boxing was my favorite thing to do. If there was ever like a bunch of girls hanging out or like you wanted to mess with someone, like you would just go flick that power boxing run, dude. I don't know, man. Just watching that thing like disappear. The best one we ever did, though. Do you know what Movies 8 is?
No.
Down in Provo. Remember that old like
I do.
dollar theater, right?
Yeah,
And there
I
was
remember
like a Fred Meyer in there and a strip mall with the original like Cafe Rio was.
I do.
So we went behind there one time and we're standing, it was like a Friday night, right? And we're standing there, it's probably like 8 or 9. Well, no, it was dark. So maybe it was like 10, something like that. And we're like, dude, should we do it? And it is like massive panel after massive panel, just like these huge, power box things. And my friends are like, dude, I don't know, man. Like, this is crazy. There's like 15 of them. They're all stacked in a row. And we're like, come on, let's do it, right? So we just like,
Can't believe you did that
whole strip mall down. And it went from being like pretty bright to dark as night. And we're like, oh shit. We're like driving around it. Like, it just felt like it'd taken longer and longer and longer to get out of there. Never got in trouble for that, but yeah, man, we're good.
Now they lock most of them. I don't know if you've seen
I'm
that.
sure they do.
Most of those are locked. Yeah.
Yeah. That would be the smart thing to do.
We had a big rivalry with Manti High School.
Yeah.
And around homecoming, we had this big G on our hill. It was white. They painted it red. And like our homecoming is like a week before. So like their homecoming.
Is that their colors?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And ours were blue and white. And then, for some reason, I don't know who was involved or I have deniability, but we maybe burned with a weed burner our initials in their football field for the week of homecoming. And then one thing led to another and another. And eventually the principals just brought in the culprits all together and we like shook hands, hugged it out and moved on. That was a fun thing too about being in those small towns too. There was like some of the stuff nowadays, you hear like police involved and law enforcement involved and kids are getting like charged with like all kinds of misdemeanors for things. Back then, it was like, let's just work this out, boys. And that was always super fun. I enjoyed it. And we were really close friends with a lot of those guys too, so it was kind of tongue in cheek.
I was going to say, did you, with the surrounding schools, did you guys end up getting to know them well? Like,
Really well.
Friends?
Yeah. There were like 3 or 4 guys that I remember that were from Ephraim that I just thought were awesome. Yeah. Super fun guys, great athletes, always really inclusive too. And it was fun to bag on each other a lot too, though.
See, we were rivals with American Fork High School, right? And my first year at Lone Peak, so my sophomore year was the first year of Lone Peak, so it was like split half and half, right? Because some of the seniors and juniors had like always gone to American Fork, so like, why would I go to this new school, right?
Yeah. So
we were kind of friendly, and then we became like really bitter rivals, right? I mean, like I could tell stories that would probably make me look like a jackass. And so, but I remember like, so I went on my mission, like, I don't know, 4 months after high school finished, right? So when I came home, all my friends that had like taken a year and a half to go on their missions, right? You know, by the time they all trickled home, they're all hanging out with the AF guys and us. And I was like, what the hell is this? I still had that like in my heart.
Traitors.
Like, these are our freaking, yeah, exactly. Freaking Judas.
Yeah.
You know? And then, then obviously they all just kind of faded into being friends. And, now we're all freaking 40. It doesn't matter. But like, yeah, it was fun, dude, having like rivals. And did you play football down there?
I did.
Who was Manti your biggest rival?
It was. And they were very good.
And how much bigger is their school than yours?
It's funny that I know this, but they were like 170 in a class. So when you think about if you had a school of 70 people in your class, you only have so many guys that are really big that are going to be in the line. There's only 4 or 5 real skill players going to be running backs or wide receivers. And when you're 2.5 times their size, you have 2.5 times those players. Yeah. And so just by and large, they had bigger line, faster, a little bit more talent. But it was fascinating from just if you look at it from afar and you look at all these small schools, there were certain schools that never put up athletes, and there were certain schools that always did.
Yeah.
Like Kanab, Parowan, just north of Cedar City, Manti, always, in some of those areas like that, South Sevier, which is down by Monroe, Utah, if you know where that is, and Gunnison were always like really good. Yeah. But then there was like 10 other schools in our division that were always mediocre at best. Yeah. And I guess it just, families, you get more kids that weren't into it, that they have kids that weren't into it. And
what if, does that have anything to do with like farming communities versus non-farming communities? Maybe
a little bit, but I also think it's maybe just the focus on youth sports and what have you. But, people in Manti are very competitive. Yeah. They have the Snow College there. They're very good at football. So I think that trickled into it a lot too. San Juan down the middle of nowhere in Blanding. Dude, they had a guy when I was in high school. His name was David Spotted Elk. His last name. Dude. And he put like 40 points up a game. He's just unbelievable athletes. And he was from like Monument Valley that has like 12 people. Yeah. And super athlete. He went and play college ball somewhere.
Dude. So we did a school down in Monument Valley. Okay. Right? When I say we did, the general contractor built the school, we put all our whiteboards down there and athletic equipment. And I had never even heard of the place, right? So I get, that was a long time ago, right? So I go down there, do all the field measurements and all that kind of stuff. And I'm driving down there and I'm like, where the hell are the people? Yeah. Like, and they built a really nice school, like super nice. And actually all the little nameplates in there had, I think it was Navajo.
It is.
It's a Navajo, yes. Mm-hmm. Navajo writing for the teachers' names, right? So like English and Navajo. And I was like, oh, that's cool. But they had like LED lighting. This is like 15 years ago.
Yeah. Right? Well, they have federal money for all that.
True. Yeah. So down all the hallways, it was like all this like mood lighting. And I was just like, this is like the coolest school I've ever been,
Yeah.
And, but I remember just like walking around. I was talking to the contractor. I was like, I think it was, who's the guys down there? Bud. I think it was Bud Mahas, right? I'm like, where like people come from? He goes, oh, dude, they're just all over the place.
Yeah, they are.
Like just completely spread out everywhere, because it's like, what is it? Like a one gas station town, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, and people just live spread out in parcels. Yeah. But really cool people all over the state, Yeah. Small town people are
Were you guys all 1A?
2A.
Oh, 2A?
Yeah, 2A.
How do you get smaller than 72?
I don't know. You like Wayne County? I don't know. You just do like small, like crazy 2-horse town. Yeah.
Do we have 1A schools?
They do. Right? They do. Okay. And there's a lot of those too, but they're really small. Yeah. Too.
They probably don't have sports, right?
They don't usually have football. They have basketball, baseball, and the other sports, but football just requires too many players.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So it was 72 in your graduating class, right?
My graduating class, whole school is like 350. right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you require you need some sophomores to step up. And
Oh,
play.
you do. Yeah. I was a 4-year in baseball, and the other sports was 3-year starter. So yeah, you were expected to step up.
Yeah, that makes sense. I was going to say 72 kids. If half of them were girls, I mean, you got a freaking
know.
real slim pickings.
Here's one interesting fact is I think we had like 35 guys and 34 of them served missions.
Really?
So to like talk
cool.
about, it's cool, but also like just to further solidify how LDS small communities are in Utah. And that one guy, I don't think he was LDS because it was like normal for him not to be, but it was just interesting how much focus there was in that. But there was a cool brotherhood created from it. And yeah.
Do you think, I have this theory, right? So I've hired a couple of guys that grew up in farming communities, and they're the freaking best. Like seriously the best employees you can get in construction, I think. Do you think that your farming background really helped you with that?
Absolutely. So this is a great point. So for my job, I do a lot of national construction, and I sell our product, which a lot of our teams are based out of Idaho and Utah, in different markets across the country. Yeah. And the one thing that really sets us apart is, if you really were to break it down, I sell Utah and Idaho farm boys to markets in California, to Texas, to Orlando, to Washington, to New York, that pass a drug test, do what they say they're going to do, super honest, hardworking, most of the time aren't drinking the night before, so they come in fully sober. And it's unbelievable. It's very normal and common for us to say that, but it's amazing how surprised companies and clients are when you say, gosh, you did exactly what you said you were going to do. And so our secret sauce is these Utah, Idaho, hardworking farm boys or city boys, but they're just honest, hardworking people.
Yeah. I also kind of feel like, and I didn't grow up on a farm by any stretch of the imagination, but I feel like I'm part of the crew, right? But I feel like it's just the figure it out generation, right?
Absolutely.
Like they're not calling their supervisor to figure out what tool to bang this piece of wood back in, right? They're just like, bop. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And I don't know how to explain that to people.
Yeah.
You bring these kids in, right? And they come from the iPad generation. They're 20-year-olds now, and it's like, I don't know how to so here's a funny story. So we do whiteboards, right? Mm-hmm. And you can get a 16-foot tall whiteboard, 5 feet tall, 6 feet wide, 16 feet wide and 5 foot tall is the tallest you can get, right? That's just how big the porcelain comes. And they're heavy as hell. They're like 350 pounds.
Wow.
Right? They are heavy. And we sold a bunch to Alabama, to a dealer in Alabama, right? This is a couple of years ago. And they call us up and they're like, hey man, what do you guys use to pick these things up? And I was like, your legs. And they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, they're like, well, how many guys do you use? And I'm like, well, I'm different because I'm built different, but me and another guy, we'll just, we put the clips on the wall, then we just, shuffle it over there and pick it up and put it on the wall. And they're like, dude, I've got 5 guys on this thing right now and they can't get it up off the ground. And I'm just like, I don't know how to answer your question.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, heave ho. You know what I mean? Pick it up.
Grit.
Yeah. I don't know what to tell you, bro. Like, that's what the architect wanted. We live in that world, right?
Yeah, we do.
So you're getting a 16-footer. So I think, honestly, they ended up cutting them in half just so those guys could pick them up, and they kind of retrimmed the inside, right? So it was like 2 8-foot boards. And I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't know how to make this work for you.
Yeah.
Do you guys see that a lot?
We do. And you can do a lot more with a little if you have a good plan, right? Like it's, you either you plan to fail or you fail or you fail to plan. Yeah. And that's kind of how we look at it. And so if you go after it smart and you go after it strategically with our teams, I think that we find ourselves successful with less people. Yeah. In other places, they just throw bodies at it and don't have a plan. So to your point, there's a group out of Utah, out of southern Utah, that does a lot of erection for a lot of our steel fabrication and putting up steel all over the country. And they just throw bodies at it. They work from 5 a.m. to sundown, and they have a lot of unique technology, but they're doing things half as fast. I mean, twice as fast, half the schedules. Yeah. And that's such a competitive advantage. And this little crew is like being pushed all over the country right now, and they're from Little Cedar City, Utah.
I'll tell you, yeah, exactly. I'll tell you what I kind of feel in the construction industry. And we'll kind of go into your background a little bit so people are like, what the hell are you guys talking about? I feel like general contractors over the last 5 to 7 years have really kind of got their shit together in the fact that they're like, no, we need good subs.
Yes.
Like price does not matter all that much. I mean, you still have to be competitive, right? I mean, you really do. Because, you have budgets you have to deal with and that kind of stuff. But to what you're kind of pointing at, it's like if you finish a school, I always say school because I'm always in school.
Right.
If you finish your project, 3 months early, right? I mean, you are making your client way more money. You know what I mean? Like there's so much value in having good subs knocking stuff out, right?
Absolutely.
Because the old days, it's like they would just low bid. And it's like, dude, I've seen that bite people so freaking bad.
All day long. Yeah. And we call that value, right? You buy value. And so when I go to a customer, my biggest thing is I always say, when I identify the right customers, my thought always in our mantra for my teams is this the type of person that is buying what we're selling?
Yeah.
And you have to identify that first, because if they're not the type of person that's buying value, quality, sophistication, a more sophisticated product all in, if you're selling a Cadillac and they want to buy a Honda Civic, there's an imbalance and it won't ever work. And so a lot of times in construction, I feel like, some people are low dollar chasers. They chase that sticker price on the car, but they're going to end up paying for it in the long run. But then there's a lot of customers nowadays, to your point, that have transitioned into that. I need a predictable outcome.
Yeah.
I need this to be certain so I can keep building. Those guys are the ones we really put our efforts into, and it's really yielded a lot of fruit for us.
Well, and that actually makes a lot of sense too, right? Because it's not only just a general contractor, it's the actual customer.
Yeah, absolutely.
The customer understands that they want good subs, right? Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and it creates a repeatable product for us too, because every time they have a bad experience, they're like holding their breath. Is this going to work out? Is this not going to work out? If they pay just a little bit more, it's almost a guarantee.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I mean, I built some storage units in the back of one of my properties up in Idaho, right? Oh my God. Dude, it took, I don't know, a year longer?
Yeah, some of the easiest projects take the longest, yeah.
And here's the craziest thing about it, dude, is, and I don't know if these guys will be offended, but I don't know, whatever, but the site super was literally an alcoholic. So my partner was taking care of it all. And it's kind of funny, right? Because it's like real small town kind of stuff, right? And I'm like, not that Salt Lake is the big city or anything. But like when I go up there, I'm like, bro, you know that this site super is like drunk, right? Like, oh yeah, it's just him. What do you mean? Like this feels like an OSHA violation. But like whatever, we're like halfway done with the project at that point. I'm just like, okay, great. And like, it's so weird going to different markets, but then you go to places like California, right, that are so freaking overregulated that it's like, well, here, I'll tell you this crazy story, right? So we, when we do schools and, it's a lot of your projects, multi-year, right? So we're 3 years into this project. So we submit all of our shop drawings at the beginning of the process, right? And we had called out these specific bolts because DSA there, they got to freaking check off everything, right? Well, we had switched suppliers, 18 months later, right? And then 6 months after that, we installed all of our basketball equipment. When we switched suppliers, they gave us a bolt that was 4 times stronger for the same price, right? So we're like, yeah, of course, why not? We'll just upgrade to that. So we install all the stuff, no big deal, blah, 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 on to the next project. DSA sends us a letter and says, hey, you guys are out of compliance. We're just like, what are you talking about? You approved this 20 months ago or whatever. Mm-hmm. And they go, no, you guys put in different bolts. True. Like, okay. And we're like, yeah, but these are 4 times stronger, So we call the supplier, we get this letter, they do this comparison on there, blah, 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 blah. We basically we don't give a shit, come swap them out. We approve this is what you're putting in.
Wow.
And so I wrote a letter to them on our letterhead, all official and everything. I'm like, listen, I think we might be having a miscommunication here. These bolts are superior. Those are inferior, and I'm trying to
You're a better product.
Yeah, I'm like trying to break it down for them. And literally we got 2 lines back. We don't care. Switch them out to what we approved. So we literally went to California and we were switching out
bolts,
inferior bolts.
Wow.
It was just like, and you tell that story to people, right? And they're just like, no way. And it's like, yes way. That is California. That is how I define California. It does not make sense down there.
It doesn't. They have this one program. You might have seen it in the news lately with Gavin Newsom, the governor, but there's a thing called CEQA, which stands for California Environmental Quality Act. Huh? And what it is a racket for legal firms. Mm. And so you and I are going to go build a warehouse in, you name it, San Jose, California. They can come in there, file a petition to try to halt our development, to do an Environmental Studies Act. And at the end of the day, what they'll end up doing after they can scare you away from delaying your project a year is literally happened. On a 500,000 square foot building, they came to us and said, if you pay us $75,000, we'll make this go away. It's extortion. And Gavin Newsom just had a big thing about it because they've had 2-year delays on affordable housing at Berkeley. And he said, we've got to get rid of CEQA. And that's from the most liberal governor in the country. Wow. And so it just shows and it's created this ecosystem. Now there's probably 150 law firms in California that only specialize in this type of racketeering. I would call it almost mob-esque. Yeah. And so California's a unique animal, but when there's more layers of regulation, it kind of weeds out some of the chuck in the truck people, right?
Yeah.
And so a little more sophisticated builders kind of do well. We just kicked off $1 billion hospital in San Diego.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah.
Holy
8
crap.
years. It'll be a sweet project, but I mean, to that point, they can only invite like 2 or 3 people at that point to look at it, because once you get that complicated.
Who'd you bid against down there?
McCarthy.
Yeah, McCarthy?
Yeah. McCarthy's a really big player in San Diego.
What about Swinnerton?
Swinnerton. Yeah. Those two.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Those are the big players.
You know what's funny? I actually like Swinnerton a lot. Actually, I like McCarthy a lot too. So isn't McCarthy based out of Vegas?
St. Louis.
Oh, they're all the way in St. Louis.
They're in St. Louis.
They're big in Vegas though too, right?
They are.
Yeah.
And Swinnerton is a big player as well. Nothing bad to say about them as well. We have a big presence in Hawaii. So do they.
Yeah.
So we compete with them a lot in those two markets.
Well, you JV with them, right?
I haven't JV'd with Swinnerton, no.
You did. Well, you guys did. You did the Joseph Smith building or something like that up in Salt. That was years ago.
Years ago. Yeah. Maybe did that with them. That's out of my group, but yeah.
Yeah. So, well, cool, man. Yeah, who knows? It's crazy. Well, tell me about your career so people know. So you work at Layton Construction?
Yeah, I do. So I'm the executive vice president of Layton Construction's National Building Group, which our focus is repeat Fortune 2500 customers. And the whole point of that is when we started this group or took over this group 7 years ago, it was a different animal. And our business was to go after like corporate consumer or corporate customers that were doing repeat projects in multiple markets. So they could just push the easy button all the time. And I think that year when I started, I just hit my 7th year here, but we did like 40 million that first year. And this last year we did $1.2 billion.
Yeah.
So we've 30x'd it in 7 years. And I think, and it's been super fun to build that within a company that's already very established in healthcare and public works and otherwise. It was very, very cool to be a part of a group that almost allowed me and some of my colleagues to be entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, take over this company's, this little business unit that's struggling, and let's see where we can take it. And it's been super rewarding, fun, satisfying. And since then, we've kind of I've taken over more responsibility nationally. So,
and you're the head of the department, right?
I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've done we did work in the last 3 years. I've done work in 35 states. So, work all over the place, which has been fun. I do a lot of frequent flyer miles, but it's also really cool and rewarding to see our teams have success in any part of the country. Yeah. So, yeah.
And where were you at before?
So before that, I was in the governor's economic advisor. I was the director of incentives and business development. So I was recruiting companies, mostly in California, to relocate to Utah for better job opportunities. And the whole reason and premise, so I did my master's degree at BYU. Mm-hmm. I was going to move to San Antonio for a very good job. The chief of staff, I met him, who's the chief of staff for the Governor Herbert, convinced me to come work at the governor's office.
Wow.
And it was a great experience. I loved it. I'm a big fan of Utah, obviously, and so that was easy to sell. But a lot of our engineers from University of Utah, Utah State, otherwise, in BYU were getting exported. So they in the government world or the talent world, they talked about that being a talent export. And we were not importing engineers, we were exporting engineers. So that was a problem. So the thought was, let's go after strategic sectors that are too dang expensive in California and otherwise, bring them here for back office and what have you. So some of our biggest wins were we brought in Goldman Sachs, we brought in Adobe's big expansion, we brought in eBay, Boeing, you name it. And so we did it strategically through tax incentives, but also like training programs, proving that our labor and engineering was adequate. Yeah. And so I think in that, I was there for 6 years and part of 3,500 jobs relocated and $4 billion in CapEx. Yeah. So a lot of people don't realize that states have these salesmen that go and they really create opportunities. It's not always just coincidental that so-and-so is building in Dallas. It actually never is.
I was going to say it never is. Right?
Never is. So if somebody's like, you think Tesla moving to Austin was coincidental? Absolutely not. They had massive amount of sales efforts to relocate, get the tax benefits, get the labor benefits, get the overall cost benefits. And so that was really, really fun. And it created kind of a foundation of relationships for me with really large companies, such as Amazon and UPS. I knew them pretty well in that role. because we were looking at 2 very large expansions in Utah. So when I started in construction, I kind of changed hats, and we built 38 Amazons now and 16 UPSs as an example.
Nice.
Because we were able to show those Utah, Idaho farm boys, put them on the road, be very predictable, do what you say you're going to do.
Yeah.
And it's been super fun. And so I've been a part of that group now for 7 years, and we're growing, and we're part of a larger group that's global.
Yeah.
So I get to have some exposure to our groups in the UK, some of our exposure to the groups in Canada, and obviously here in the US.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So let me have you talk about something, because there's this kind of movement out there in the world, like we hate the rich.
Yeah.
Right? For example, right? Like I see these headlines all the time about Blackstone buying up single family homes, right? And people are like, oh, they're buying all of our homes and blah, 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 blah. So the other day I looked it up, right? In the US, there's $43.4 trillion worth of homes.
Wow.
Right? BlackRock owns $280 billion.
Yeah, it's a small portion.
I'm like, it's a percent of a percent of a percent of a percent, right? And I think so when Amazon was trying to find their second headquarters, right? You remember that?
I do.
They were kind of shopping Utah a little bit, supposedly. And then they went to go to Brooklyn, and one of our favorite
AOC killed
senators, AOC. And then she patted herself in the back like it was the greatest thing ever, right? And those who kind of understand how economics work, not that I'm some economist or anything, right? But I get it. I understand how this works. Tell us why that was a horrifically stupid thing to do.
Unbelievably stupid. So the average, so it was like 3,500 employees. So just do the math real fast. The average salary was like 130 grand. I mean, some people were less, but a lot of people were more.
Yeah.
And so when you look at the economic multiplier of $130,000 salary, it's like worth $400,000 per individual.
Yeah.
So do 400,000 times 3,500, you're like 120 million in economic stimulus every single year from those employees.
Forever.
Forever, in perpetuity. And then not to mention the economic index of my sister company in New York City was going to build their whole tower. When that project canceled, look at all the economic hurt that caused my colleagues, right? Yeah. They would have went and been able to utilize that money. And it's not that people just hoard that and put it in a bank account. Like money is multiplied, right? We hire more people, we build more projects, we grow, and that creates just stimulus.
Well, they're going to revitalize a part of the city, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, they were like, it was like
a dilapidated
area, and they were going to knock it down and make it beautiful. And
and there was some stewardship as far as a community stewardship element that they would have made it better. Yeah. So hugely, people don't have the foresight or the understanding to really look at the long term very often. They only look at the short term of what matters to them. And she was just trying to prove people hate Jeff Bezos. And she was just like Bernie Sanders, hate the rich. Yeah. And so she harnessed that energy of on the left that doesn't like people that are successful in many regards. And then they moved to Washington, D.C. They changed from that plan. They moved to D.C. and Nashville. And they have these centers of excellences, and they welcomed them in open arms. They're like, we'll take all that benefit.
Nashville's booming.
Yeah.
You know, you even look at it too, right? So you take all the real estate, there was all that real estate that was going to be bought up. There's all those pending, deals are going to be done. Like, yeah, as long as, this is announced and they start moving, all the executives, all the people they're going to bring in, they were buying, penthouses and, well, not penthouses, but just like condos and stuff, like real close, all those real estate agents got smashed. All the nail salons and restaurants and grocery stores and all the
You're spot on.
ancillary businesses that are going to be built. And I mean, dude, you're talking like miles wide.
Yeah.
Right. How much economic impact that would have just like pushed through all of Brooklyn. And I don't know. And then they're cheering in the streets, dude. And even the people in New York were like, yeah, we got those rich bastards out of here. It's like, okay.
You've missed the whole point. So one example close to home is up here at formerly I Am Flash, now Texas Instruments. They had an announcement that they're going to get, some tax incentive. Let's call it $100 million from the state of Utah. So people that don't understand it, like, wow, they're giving them, I pay taxes and they're giving them $100 million. Like, this is BS. They need to understand what this is. So when they say $100 million, that is probably 20% of their tax. So right now they say, here's a baseline. That company pays $500 million in taxes. Anything above that will give them 20% back. So when they project, and it's a $100 million incentive, they're projecting they're going to pay $500 million more in taxes in the state of Utah coffers for education, roads, infrastructure, you name it. And we're going to give them 20% of the money that they will pay in advance of where they're at now. So in other words, the thing that people don't understand and something you should pay attention to when they talk about, oh, this company's getting X or this company's getting Y, you got to remember that would not have happened if that company didn't come here. So In Utah, when they say, oh, so-and-so's getting 10 million, remember that we're getting 40 million in taxes that never would have came if they didn't come to the state.
Right.
So these incentives are truly that. You're giving them a little bit so they make a bigger splash here back. They're not grants, they're reimbursements. And so that was always interesting to explain to people, but all they can see is the headline that this was a big gift. Yeah. It's not a gift. We're the ones getting the gift.
Yeah. And here in Utah, right? I mean, we're freaking always behind on housing, right? So,
always.
So these people, when they're cheering on these incentives being taken away, it's like, if you're an HVAC guy, a plumber, electrician, a cement guy, like you are literally cheering that you don't have as much work as you possibly could have had.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know? I mean, what if, they bring in, 3,500 jobs, dude. How many freaking homes is that?
Yeah,
it's
unbelievable.
Insane. How many people is that? I mean, schools get built, how many more restaurants? I mean, just all the economic impact, I mean, the studies, I don't know, all you got to do is just, Google an economic impact study and read it. Yeah, you do. And just see what the actual impact hits, I mean, you might, I think if I remember right, the numbers, and they're probably wrong, but I think they're going to give them like $1.2 billion for Amazon. Does that sound about right? Something like that. But that was probably over 10 years. And that was usually that was property tax abatements. So they weren't even they weren't giving them cash. They're saying instead of paying 12% on your property tax, you're going to pay 7%. Right. And people think, they're giving them $1 billion. It's like, no, they're giving them a reduction in property tax so that they'll bring 3,500 jobs here. Yeah. But it was going to impact something like $6 billion. Crazy amount. And it's like, guys, but then you have, so what you really need to understand is the flip side of it, right? Where you have obviously Washington, D.C., and you have Nashville, and you have probably 4 or 5 other places that are like, we'll do it. Yeah. We'll do it right now. Yeah. Like, come to our city. And they're just like, all right, Brooklyn, if you don't want us, boom, they're just on to the next suitor. Yeah, it's crazy. Absolutely. Well, there's always someone who's interested in what you're selling if it doesn't fit somewhere else. I mean, some of these locations have to realize there's always healthy competition otherwise. And Utah is the second most diverse state for economics in the country. So, you go to Houston, oil's down, no one's building. Right. Oil's up, everybody's building. Here, oil's down, it's a small hit. Tech's down, it's a smaller hit. Construction down, it's a smaller hit. But, when you have a global recession, it hurts. But that's the best part about Utah is we're so diverse. We're not relying on one industry over another. Yeah. So that was fun taking that knowledge of the public side, public finance side, recruitment. It was business development 101, and then transitioning that into an industry that I really love, which is construction. I had a really good offer to go to an investment banking firm, to a tech company, or to construction. And I remember sitting down and talking to some people who were very successful people in Salt Lake. One was the president of Zions Bank. One was the president of Boyer Development Group and others. And I was saying, hey, I've got these 3 offers. What would you do in this position? Because they were friends. They were on the governor's board with me. And I just couldn't help but to have this feeling I love being able to see something created that'll be there long after I'm gone. Yeah. And that's my favorite thing about construction. When you really build cool things, it's there way after I'm done with my career and way after I'm gone. Whereas in some regards, investment banking or tech, nothing negative about it, but once that process or transaction's over, it's kind of gone and you can't ever go see it again or experience it again. So probably less money in construction than those other 2 industries, but I love it. And it's fun. You never know. I mean, you guys are tearing it up. We're doing a great job. Yeah. Good people there, though. I think the best thing about no matter where you work are the people. And that's definitely the difference. It doesn't really matter the name on the wall. Yeah. It just matters the people who work inside those walls. And we got some really good people. Was it hard to move out of the governor's role into there? There were some challenges. The one thing that was interesting was you have an expense account now where before I couldn't accept a $5 sandwich or couldn't buy anybody $5 worth of anything, couldn't accept anything. And now part of the construction development world, that's very much a part of the ecosystem is taking people out to entertainment events and what have you to build relationships of trust. And so that was different, which was fun. Don't get me wrong. And the other part that was really hard was just transitioning into the corporate side of things. I mean, I was traveling a lot more. I was putting a lot more time on the road. I was putting a lot more hours in, but there's obviously a higher return on investment, but that was a big transition, Yeah. It was hard at the governor's office, but they're a little more protective of your hours and your work-life balance. So when you get into that the corporate side or the private side, sky's the limit. So, and I love that quote. When we started, there was a quote, one of my favorites, that says the best way to predict the future is to create it. Yeah. And the comment early on was, hey, where are you going to take this group?
And, where do you think it'll be in 5 years? And the beauty is to feel like you're empowered enough to go create it on your own. And I just had really awesome and visionary people that were not scared to lose, not scared to fail. Yeah. And we just went after it. And
did you ever think you'd hit $1 billion in a year?
I was hoping we would, but I mean, that's a lot to put in place in a year. I mean, that's $80 million a month. Mm-hmm. You're doing in completed build, paid construction. And so to do 1.2 billion has been just super exciting. When I started, the whole company was 800 million. So that's with all the people, all the divisions. And now as a company, we're about 4 billion. And it's just been a fun ride to see where this has been going and where we're headed from here.
What's your goals now?
I mean, it's a lot easier to go from 1 to 4 billion. I don't mean that smaller casually than it is to go from 4 to 8, because there's just not that much construction, if you will, out there. There is, but now you're starting to cut pies from other people. There's not just organically that much construction. I think we're probably going to grow another 10 to 15% is our hope annually, even during this year. We just recently had our strategic planning session, and even though there's a lot of headwinds in the economy, we're on target to have another record-breaking year. Yeah. So there's a lot of talk, Q3, Q4 this year, some things slowing down. But
is there some clients that are slowing down with you guys, or are they still guns a-blazing?
We pivoted to focus on those who have capital and maybe backlog. There's a lot of merchant developers who definitely are counting their money and taking golfing a lot more this year, because there's just not the interest rates are killing the deals. But in general, there's still a lot of work out there to be had, and we're excited about it.
Isn't pet food like a huge segment?
Huge. It's funny you say that.
Oddly wild, right?
Yes. So we won a project in Fort Smith, Arkansas. It's a cold storage project. Well, across the street, they have kind of a building that's antiquated, but has similar goals. And what this is it's for dog food. Little Fiskars cans. Mm-hmm. They keep them cold in a cold storage area, and then they have packaging on the other side. And I thought, well, why wouldn't you just expand, 20% of your other building? During COVID, 3 million people didn't have pets before COVID, bought them during COVID in the U.S. So that's a lot of pet bowls to fill. And so, pet ownership just skyrocketed. So naturally, the pet companies had to do their thing too. So we're building a $120 million project in Arkansas because people bought more pets during COVID.
Isn't that wild?
It's crazy.
So these companies, do you get involved in their strategic plans at all?
Not as much. Sometimes in the CapEx planning, they have us engaged so they can look at, maybe they have 500 million to spend, and they look at 5 markets and they're only going to choose 3. Sometimes we're in those conversations, but in the ultimate strategic plan of their sales and growth, I wish I was. It'd be exciting, but not very often. Well,
and the reason why I asked, it's kind of interesting because 3 million more pets are sold, right? And it's like, well, can you keep that trajectory? So you're going to put a lot of capital expenditure out for these massive buildings, right? I mean, $120 million buildings are freaking insane.
Huge. Right? Yeah.
What if that demand goes down? How far down does it go before it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I just kind of wonder, because it's all fun and growth, right? Growth is really, really fun. But you also got to have in the back of your head, in my mind at least, you got to be like, okay, if this thing plateaus or something moves or the economy changes or they ban pets because pets spread COVID.
They weren't wearing their mask.
Something ridiculous.
Dog masking company.
Yeah, dog. Dude, bro, I saw that in San Francisco.
No, you didn't.
Abso-freaking-lutely.
I bet you did. That's insane.
Absolutely. Oh yeah. Crazy. So we work with the Golden State Warriors, one of our best clients in the NBA. So all during COVID, we were going out there, and the freaking. I call it buffoonery. I don't want to offend anybody that loves masks and stuff. I mean, wear your mask if you want to. I really, but it's just like when you see people walking down the street and little dogs got a mask, they've got a mask.
That's insane.
Did I just see that? Did you see that?
I saw that. It is the left's MAGA hat. Yeah. I still think it is. Like, you go on airplanes, if you fly from California or Boston or somewhere that's a little more left leaning, it's unbelievable. Half the plane has got masks. Yeah. You fly from Texas, from Utah, from Oklahoma City or Dallas or, something like Austin. Yeah. Nobody has masks. And it's just funny how different markets have they're always wearing their MAGA hats.
Well, so I was flying down to Arizona last week just to hang out with my buddy for the day, and I flew back. And I get on the plane, and I flew Southwest because, it was like freaking $49. I was like, whatever.
Yeah.
So I don't have my private jet quite ready to go.
It was in the shop.
It was in the shop, yeah. And this lady sits down next to me, right? We're in the exit row because I got on first, and she's wearing a mask, right? And I'm just like, okay, whatever, and I'm sitting there, we start flying. And then she's kind of like following around with something. I said, hey, can I ask you a question? She's like, yeah, sure. And I go, why are you still wearing a mask? I'm like, no judgment. I just like really want to know like why I'm wearing a mask. She goes, I don't know. I just kind of got used to it.
Unbelievable.
And I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
And that was it. I was just like, man, I just don't get it, man. I hated those things.
I did too. And wearing them on the
Breathing
flight,
in them
if you had it under your nose, they'd kind of wake you up even if you were sleeping. Put it over your nose. I flew a lot during COVID. I miss flying during COVID, actually. The mask and all that was awful. But man, I took a flight once to Denver. There were 2 people on an entire Delta jet. Me and another person were like, where do you want to sit, bud?
Yeah.
And there were more staff working than there was passengers.
So here's a funny story, right? Going exactly along with that. So we fly a ton too. I've got installers all over the place, right? So my brother, it's like, I don't know, 6 days into COVID, 4 days into COVID, right? They'd shut everything down. He's in Dallas flying up to Seattle, right? And he calls me right when he lands it. And so he gets on the plane. There's literally 2 people, just like you said, him and the other guy, right? So he sits on this plane. The guy's somewhere else, right? Because it's assigned seating. And the stewardesses weren't coming around and doing drinks or anything, right? They just stopped all service, right? Because of COVID. So my brother Kevin's like on this plane. He's like, dude, I get on it for like an hour. And then I like look up and like look around and, the plane's just like humming along, kind of shaking a little bit. I can't see the other person. I can't see any pilots. He goes, I felt like apocalypse now. Like, am I like by myself? It's like, I felt alone. I felt scared. Then they land, and the one guy, like, he was probably sleeping in a row, right? And he was just like, it was the weirdest thing ever, man. And I'm like, oh, that would be weird. I mean, being in an airplane, like what you were saying, right?
It's crazy.
How creepy was that?
Did you go to LA at all during COVID?
Not until the second year.
Driving the freeways in 2020 was the most amazing thing ever. You could drive from downtown LA to like Orange County, like in 10% of the time. There was nobody on the roads. It was like, it was apocalyptic almost. It was wild. Now everyone's got a wild bug to get out. I mean, the airport's a zoo now, but no, it was a fun experience to kind of see the whole country. Some places were over the top. Some places, like we went to New York a lot, you had to have a vaccine card to go to a restaurant. And in the construction industry, as you know, people lean pretty hard right in the industry. And so a lot of my colleagues who were very proud that they never got vaccinated couldn't get into restaurants. Yeah. So that was like part of the thought. Like, I guess we're just ordering DoorDash. Yeah. Because normally you'd go places and they would want to, so firm they didn't want to share it. And then there was this big movement to have like a fabricated vaccine card. And so everyone had one of those on their phone to just like show quickly. And they're like, okay, come on in. But that whole process, I'm glad it's over, but I'm just waiting for the next mass hysteria.
Yeah. Dude, so my vaccine card got stolen in January.
Did it?
Yeah. I was with Jimmy, our boy Jim.
Wow.
So we're down in Brazil, right? So I actually got vaccinated. My wife didn't, right? So she had to take a test before we went down there, and blah, blah, blah. So I just put my vaccine card in my passport, right? So as we're flying from Brazil to Argentina, Jimmy grabbed all the passports for everybody, right? Put them in a bag, just checked them all through, right? And then brought them back on the bus. Well, when I was like, oh crap, I left my vaccine card. And I'm like, oh, no one will care. Like, whatever, right? I get my passport back, it's freaking gone. And I'm like, well, shit. No, I don't have a freaking vaccine card. Shoot. So I mean, I have a picture of it so I can show people. But I think at this point, though, I don't think anyone cares.
Think it matters.
I was shocked that Brazil cared.
Yeah.
They didn't even care for the first year. And then out of nowhere, they just flipped a switch and was like, no, everyone needs to be vaccinated.
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
We traveled I went to Canada, which was a lot more severe in their regulation. We built a very large project in Toronto, and they deemed it necessary. It was a Amazon fulfillment center, and they deemed it necessary for the common good, or however they phrased it, because they were delivering maybe medical supplies and what have you. So they weren't letting anyone in from the U.S., but I had a visa that was specifically as an essential worker.
Oh, nice.
To get into Canada. So I could go like right past the line. There was no line for people not from the U.S. because no one could get in there unless you had an essential worker visa. This is a funny story. I have a friend who had this hunt in Canada, and he's a big hunter, and he spent all this money on this mountain goat hunt up there. He couldn't get up there. So he's like, hey, can you get me essential worker status? Because he's like, you get up there like once a month, no questions asked. I'm like, yeah. So it's just funny how that whole process kind of made you do different things and created different behaviors. But
I know my vaccine card was handwritten. You know, some of them had a sticker. Mine was just handwritten.
Yeah.
Like, Anyone could forge this thing.
Yeah, and nobody looked at things.
I guess
hard.
some doctor in Utah just got in trouble.
He did.
Did you hear about that?
Yes. Was he a plastic surgeon or?
Was he a plastics guy?
I think
Those
so.
Damn plastic surgeons, dude.
I think Nick knew him though, and the interesting thing is he was like, it was some racket to fabricate it and give people. He just like inserted them with like insulin or something, like sugar free insulin.
Saline.
Saline, something like that. And people were, he's getting the book thrown at him.
They're coming hard.
Yeah.
So, but here's the thing though, right? Like, it's one thing if you got, some bro in your neighborhood that's doing it, right? Like whatever, right? Then you have like a licensed doctor.
That's rough.
It's like, dude.
I know.
You know what I mean? Like, you got to know what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
But whatever. Life's life, I guess.
Yeah.
Vaccine. Dude. Are we even out of COVID? Is it officially over?
I don't know. I think it is.
We're April 28th, 2023. I think we're still in it.
So my son, Jackson, was born on March 15th, 2020. And when he was born, it was right when everything was shutting down, like literally that day. Yeah. And I remember my wife, who's just a rock star, had the baby, was really healthy right after. And the doc came in. You usually have that whole next day or whatever, and you leave like the next night or whatever. They came to us like 8 hours after we had the baby, and they were like, you might want to leave tonight because like it's getting kind of crazy and people are smocked up and all that. So we left that night. So my wife went home the same day she had the baby, and we got home. The next day was that earthquake in Utah. If you remember.
Oh yeah. Oh, I remember the earthquake.
So like it was like having a baby, having an earthquake, and then everything shutting down.
Yeah.
And that was wild. I remember going to Walmart one night over in Sugar House. There's a grocery store, that Walmart grocery store, and I was in there buying some stuff because I didn't know I had a new baby. So I'm like buying like baby wipes and rubbing alcohol to put in there as like a hand sanitizer. And there was all this like pasta and foods that could stay for a while. And I go to the checkout line, and there's like 8 dads doing the same thing. They all have like a cart full of like essential foods, and like, it was wild. And
that time was so
times.
crazy for me too. Dude, we do all the floors for like the Pac-12 tournament, the West Coast Conference, WAC, like all the ones that are in Vegas, right? And so I'm driving down, and like I'm a UVU booster, right? So they're calling me up, right? They're just like, hey man, we're gonna go golfing, but like we're not, and like things are getting weird, and like we don't know what's going on, so we're just kind of, people kind of go to their hotel rooms, like there was all these rumors. I was like, okay, that's weird, right? So literally, as I hit like St. George, that's when Duke, I think it was Duke or Kentucky, one of the big boys, right? We're like, we're not going to a tournament, like just not going. And I was like, that's odd, right? And dude, within like, by the time I hit like through that little canyon, right? The guys from UVU were calling me up like, hey, tournament's off.
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
Wow.
Because these things make billions.
Oh yeah.
Right. Between the March Madness tournament and then all the conference tournaments. I mean, I don't even know what it is. $20 billion and it's spread out to the schools. Like their programs depend on this money, right? I'm like,
for sure.
This is crazy that they're shutting this down. So we get to Vegas. We're staying in the Palms place, right? Because I actually was bringing my kids. So I had my kids, my wife. We were staying in like, a little 2-bedroom in the Palms. And dude, we get there. There's like, and it's raining in Vegas, which almost never happens, right? It's really weird. And I'm like, this is the weirdest day. So we get up there, the freaking TVs don't work, right? My kids are kind of like angsty, right? Because they've been in the car for like 6 hours. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, babe, just hang out here. I'm going to run over to Walmart. I'm just going to go grab like some, like stuff for breakfast. We had a kitchenette in there, all that kind of stuff. Dude, we go to freaking Walmart, bro. And it is like desolate. Like all the things are empty. Dude, there's cop cars and fire like trucks with their lights on. I'm like, what the hell is going on? It started like making me nervous, right? So then, I'm talking to the guy at the hotel. I'm like, yeah, I get the TVs fixed. So he's out there getting the TVs fixed. I come back, dude, we flip the news on, and it's just like pandemonium's hit, right? Because I wasn't listening to the radio. We were just listening to music, right? I didn't realize that like they had started shutting shit down.
Yeah.
Right? Because I was like, well, they turn these tournaments off, whatever. I'm just going to take my family
to
it was shows
like 3 weeks. Wasn't that the comment? Let's all work together for 3 weeks.
It was
2 weeks?
2 weeks shut down.
Shut down.
That's still not over.
Yeah, it's still not over. We're still in that 2 weeks.
But, bro. And so I'm sitting, so we like, I mean, I don't know what time we got there, maybe like 5, 6, 7 o'clock by this time at night, right? And dude, the local people down there were like, we're going to box Las Vegas in, no one in, no one out. And I was like, oh, hell no. I'm not staying here for an undetermined amount of time. I like Vegas, but I like Vegas for about 2 nights, mm-hmm. right? And so I'm talking to my wife, and I'm like, what do you want to do? She's like, I have no idea. And I'm like, are they really going to shut this place down? Because you could actually shut Vegas down pretty easy. There's only like 3 roads in, maybe 4, right?
Yeah, you're right.
Like major ones. And I'm like, this is crazy. So like we're sitting there, and I'm like, well, let's just sleep. This is probably just some hysteria. And dude, I woke up at like 5 a.m. and I'm like, we're out of here.
Yeah.
We just load the kids up, dude. We drive freaking straight back to Utah. And and then like I remember like I was listening to all this news and consuming all this craziness, which I should not have done. I should have just ignored it and gone to work like I normally do, right? And I just remember this guy, I'll never forget it. He was just going on and on. He's like, listen, we are totally fine in Utah. The only thing that could happen here is if the water supply is ever disrupted, but it's all underground. The only thing that could break this is the earthquake. And I was like, yeah, we never have earthquakes. Blah, blah, blah. Freaking 4 days later, I'm like, what the hell's going on? And like, I just remember thinking, earthquake. And I go running upstairs and I'm never hysteric, right? I'm like, Michelle, kids. And I'm just like trying to like gather everyone in my house. I mean, it only went on for like 40 seconds or something. And then I was just like, it's happening. We're all dead. We're not going to have water. Which of my friends own a cabin? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I got to go. And that was the only time I ever really freaked out. But like, and then it was awesome in Utah for 2 weeks because
it was
no
awesome.
one was driving.
Yeah.
It's the cleanest air we've ever had.
It was.
And I never shut down my business. I don't know. Did you guys go remote?
We were remote for like 45 days maybe. Yeah. And, some of our customers like didn't travel or didn't go into the office for like a year or more. Yeah. And we were like 45 days remote. And then there were some people trickled in, and we were respectful of those who didn't feel comfortable. I mean, it created a remote work style, but in construction, you're hands on. So there's not really an option to be remote.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was funny too, because I had actually set my company up to be remote probably a year previous. Right. So I bought all new servers and we just done the remote desktop thing virtual desktop thing. And I literally had the option for every single person. And I just called all my employees. Right. Mm-hmm. I'm like, hey, what do you want to do? And, most of them were just like, man, I'm just coming to work. Like, I don't think this is that big a deal, And so, we were like wiping down and, a couple of people wore masks inside the office. But I was kind of like, I'm like, if you're either home or at the office, it's not that much different. Because we're smaller, obviously. I mean, you guys have a massive office. But like, there's like 17 people inside my office. So it's like, just don't interact with the outside world. And we'll just kind of keep these two safe locations, right? And, gosh, it was just weird. And then, we had all these, so we work nationwide, right? Pretty much 35 states, right? We don't go really, really far east. And like, dude, it was like every day we were getting like multiple letters. It's like, here's your essential workers card or here's your essential workers pass. And so like, yeah, dude, every time we went to an airport or went to any city, we just had like multiple letters, right? So I printed a bunch of them out, gave them to some of my installers. And then the rest of us just kind of kept them on our phones as PDFs. It's like, yeah, here's a letter. I'm a construction worker on federal projects. And they're just like, okay, see ya.
Yep. It was pretty crazy.
The best exemption ever.
I know.
It's better than pre-check. But yeah, man, I don't know. Did you guys freak out at Layton at all? Were you guys thinking like this is going to be real bad for us?
I mean, everybody was when you're looking at that many projects. So we do like a third of our business is probably healthcare and maybe a fourth. But at the time, if you remember, hospitals got so full of patients that were sick and they were so worried about being over capacity, which is true, that they immediately stopped all elective surgeries. And if you look at a business of a hospital, they make most of their money on elective surgeries or those types of items and not very much on sick people in the ICU. They just don't. And so they literally canceled their cap investments, like no new projects, stop construction until we figure this out. And now that there's been all that 2 years, I would say, of just like no investment, now they're like, we're behind.
Right.
So it's a great place to be now. But at the time, it was different. So we were really, really lucky that we were so heavy in my business unit with robotic fulfillment centers and industrial and distribution and what have you, because that was the only place people were investing. They were investing really heavy. And so it kind of carried a lot of that loss with more growth, and it really helped us. But there was a time where, everyone was kind of concerned about what it do to projects nationally. But we did very well during COVID. We doubled in size. Yeah. So it was we were lucky to be in the right place at the right time. So
we didn't quite double, but we were very fortunate. We had two of our competitors shut down. Spalding was just like, we're done. They've never really opened back up.
Wow.
And I'm like, this is odd.
Yeah. Well, they did that to people. Random thing. I traveled so much. I was always quote unquote exposed, in the offices and all this. I never got it. And maybe I got sick once, but I got tested like 6 or 7 times when I had like a cold or something. Yeah. It was always inconclusive and I didn't have it. And so it was just always so fascinating to me that I was always out there where they said you shouldn't be, on flights and in cars and in public transport and in different offices and different markets. And I wasn't just home in my little home office and I didn't get it. But I know people that were like super protective at home, got it. Yeah. So, I mean, it was such a unique randomized illness that, I mean, it was serious. People who had asthma or breathing or were already susceptible to illness. I mean, they got hurt really bad. And so I think in hindsight, you look at it, I think it could have been a lot worse. There was talk the first week, if you remember. I remember there was someone on one of the networks that said this could affect potentially 20-something% of our population. And I was like,
oh, yeah,
60 million people? Like, and so thank God it wasn't that dramatic. Yeah. But crazy.
It was weird in our industry, I'll tell you that. See, what we were kind of worried and kind of not. So most of the projects we're on are federally funded, right?
Right.
So they're bonded, all that kind of stuff, right? So really not getting paid isn't really a thing.
Yeah.
Right? But with how the government was acting, we were like, dude, what if they just shut everything down? Because they could just go, hey, we're pausing everything. Boom. Every federal project is paused. We'll let you know when we open back up. Then I was like, well, that's when cash flows stop, and that's when we don't really have anything to do, I actually did a little cash forecast, and I was like, well, I could probably run for 3 years with how much cash I have. So I'm like, we'll see how this thing goes.
Yeah.
Before I'm like, well, boys, it was good working with you.
Right. You look at the group who are focused in offices, and they just got crushed. We have a sister company, part of our group, our larger group that's in San Francisco, and they were heydaying it before COVID. I mean, they're building for Googles, the Facebooks of the world, all over in Silicon Valley, these fancy office places. Well, they like shut down all those campuses. And so all their renovation work and all this high paying work I'm talking like 95% fell off the rock. Where in other markets across the country, it was continuing to grow. So you just had to take, you had to balance out just like a good diversity investment portfolio would do. You got to make sure you have a good diversity to balance out when things like this happen. Yeah.
Did Office ever come back?
It still hasn't, no. We built some here, the Innovation Point in Lehigh, those 4 buildings, we built those.
Oh, okay.
We built some pretty large office projects in Texas, but in general, I think it's probably 15 to 20% of what it was still.
Yeah.
And there is also a lot of leases coming to bear. Now the 5-year balloon payments are coming up for due. It's going to be interesting to see what the market does in the next 12 months in that space. I think that they're not going to continue to build as much. I think industrial, healthcare, data center, complex manufacturing is going to keep going. But that office place is going to struggle.
Yeah, it's such a weird world, right? Because you have all these tech companies that are doing massive layoffs, right? And I think people are not really paying attention to that.
Yeah, I think you're right.
You hear a little flash, but like, I want to say Disney just laid off like 17,000 employees, or maybe 7,000 employees or something.
Something crazy.
I mean, Elon Musk walks in the door and freaking lays off 7,500 people. And people are like, they hear these numbers. I think they hear those numbers kind of like the national debt, right? Like, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
How many trillion? Whatever. It doesn't matter anymore, right? It's monopoly money. But when you hear like 7,500 jobs are gone, let's just say each one of those people are in a 3-person family, a wife and 1 kid, right? I mean, you're talking, what is that? 20,000,
yeah.
22,000 people, 2,500 people that are like affected by that one move.
Absolutely.
The homes, and if you don't need 7,500 offices, I mean, holy shit, how many buildings is that?
Yeah.
5, 6? I mean, it's a ton, right? And dude, every day, I mean, didn't Facebook lay off 14,000 people or
some crazy amount? It's like 50,000 for some of these people. It's hard to even fathom that many people that get laid off. But you look at some of the jobs in Facebook. Have you looked at that report from the Wall Street Journal? Did this report about like some of the jobs that got laid off? And I mean, there were some pretty pointless jobs that were getting paid like 3, 4, 500,000 in Silicon Valley that weren't contributing to the bottom line. And so they were the first to get cut. And it's interesting. Meta really Meta hit $80 a share back in November. And now it's kind of riding high because they kind of cleaned out their shop a little bit and the market reacted.
Well, and the tech companies are doing the weirdest shit too, right? They were just like hiring anyone.
They were.
Yeah, I can code. They're like, you're hired.
Yeah.
Here's $100,000 signing bonus. And it's like, there was a guy I saw on TikTok. I think it's true. Who knows, right? We're on TikTok, right? But he was working for like 6 different companies all remotely. And they were all like 6-figure incomes.
Wow.
And he just answered a few emails each day from each one. And he just kind of had like each window open, right? Each Outlook account. And he'd just be like, I'm sitting here just answering emails, and they're like, oh, this guy's amazing. He's answering shit at 1:00 in the morning. It's like, he has 6 jobs. He's just at his house.
I bet that was very possible.
Oh, I bet it happened a lot.
I bet you did.
Two jobs I bet happened all the time.
Especially if you're in coding or software development.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Why wouldn't you?
Or you're an admin.
Yes.
Hell, half those people were just like, $120,000 a year salary in Silicon Valley is actually not that much.
No, it's not.
Right? It's actually probably entry level.
Right.
You know? So if you move to Nashville or you move to freaking Utah or Tahoe or something, right? Where it's pretty cheap living, right? And you got 4 or 5 of these freaking jobs. It's like, yeah, you're making $600,000.
Yeah.
Just like showing up for a Zoom meeting and you know what I mean?
Or those Salesforce administrators. I don't know if you've heard of those, but they help companies kind of build out their Salesforce on their platforms. And sometimes those people can have 2 or 3 accounts that are like 2 or 3 jobs and they're killing it.
Yeah.
Killing it. So for all you kids out there, there's an opportunity.
Yeah. Actually, kids, I'll tell you where the real opportunity is. It's in the trades.
Yeah, exactly. It is.
It really is.
Become a welder. No, just kidding.
Oh, dude, a welder or like figure out electrical or, I mean, who do you think, which of you guys' subs do you think makes the most money?
Great question. I think electricians do very, very well. If you build the right network of individuals and talent and customers, but I think concrete, if you are doing a lot of volume, does very, very well.
Yeah.
But when you're looking at those trades, they're big dollar amounts. The specialty trades, you and I've talked about this before. Yeah. I mean, they're making great returns for the amount of revenue they're having to generate. And we make enough for bread because we're just getting our fees are so cut so small. But when you look at some of these specialty trades, they don't have to fill as many. They don't have as many places to go hunt, but when they do get work, the returns are fantastic. So
I'm sure I can talk about this. Who cares, right? But I'm actually working right now. I've got a PE firm kind of backing me up. We're about to get married. We're about to make some signatures happen here, but we're gonna go roll up the whole industry. And dude, it's wild. Like there's so little competition in both of the industries I'm in athletic flooring and in athletic equipment. And you know, we do federally funded jobs, like this basically recession proof. And I think like these PE firms, I've had a few hit me up, right? When they really look at the whole thing, they're just like, oh shit, this is like, there's good margins here. And it's like, yeah. And if we roll it all up, we control the whole thing.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we'll leave one competitor. You don't want to be antitrust, right? Let them have 2 states. You know what I mean? And it's like, yeah. And they really, and we kind of have a labor problem. Because especially you do have to have skilled labor, right? But we'll just train them. Yeah. You know, but the thing is now is we can charge enough money that it's really easy to pay guys. I mean, we can pay them as much as a freaking computer programmer.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, some of these tradesmen, I mean, you see MEP, which stands for mechanical, electrical, plumbing for those who don't know, but like an MEP superintendent, these guys are north of $200,000. Yeah. I mean, people don't realize that. And some of them don't have a college degree.
Right.
And so you look at those folks, fire suppression.
You almost don't want them to have a college degree. Are we allowed to say that yet?
You can. Yeah. You can say that because they've learned it through the trades and they've been out in the field working their butt off. And
yeah, they've worked since they were 18 years old.
And know what that means.
Yeah.
Know what it takes to be successful. But you look at fire suppression. That's one that's really interesting to me. People putting up fire sprinklers in buildings. They're making like 20 to 25% on their margins, which is.
Why don't plumbers do that?
There's all these unions and piping requirements and what have you. So they kind of keep in their little bubbles.
Instead of each other's line.
Yeah. Some plumbing companies do both, but I'm friends with some pretty large national fire suppression companies that have now had a PE firm join them and they're buying out other smaller firms and creating a larger network. And the multipliers on those are fantastic. Yeah. So it's made me want to start hanging sprinklers.
Kind of.
I rolled sprinklers growing up on a farm. And I just got to hang them.
Yeah, exactly. You got to roll them out there. No, there's a lot of PE jumping into the trades.
Absolutely.
Because you can roll all these mom and pops up and they, you know, no one's really done it. And, you know, if your little company's doing $2 million a year is worth 5X, you know, you roll it up into a $100 million company, it's instantly 15X.
Yeah. The multiplier when you're grabbing some of these smaller companies with more upside rather than grabbing larger. I mean, our company was acquired 3 years ago. Yeah. It's been a great marriage for us. We've kind of got acquired into a large group of companies and they're fantastic.
Who is that company? What's it?
STL Building Group. They're in New York City.
STL?
STL. So there's 11 companies in our kind of parent company and our holding company, if you will.
All contractors?
All contractors, all different levels. We're the lion's share. We do about 40%, but the parent company does about $10 billion a year. Yeah. I mean, it's $800 million a month for one business. And so they have PE and we're privately held, but they're looking at like companies are always trying to go public with those types of things because there's so much stability in the diversification. Mm-hmm. But we're like, that's a huge animal to move to go public, right? And no one wants to go public with the public reporting requirements and what have you. So getting into the PE function, if you're really getting into multiplier, like you're saying, jump into those specialty trades, jump into those who you can really scale to grow. So More conversation. You and I, let's get going, buddy.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. Yeah, and it's not hard to do.
No. Well, if you got the right customers, you got the right formula, you can scale. Absolutely scale it. Yeah. And it's fun. Construction's fun.
Construction is fun.
It's really fun.
I don't know why people don't get that.
Yeah.
It's dirty, but it's fun.
Yeah.
Actually, I haven't been dirty in like 5 years. I don't know why I say that. I've been dirty my 20s and 30s. I joke with
Your hands are so soft. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I know, dude. It's like I gotta. I'm actually a guy that never wears gloves. So if you actually look at my hands, I have scars everywhere because I don't know. I never liked wearing gloves because I felt like I wasn't actually holding on to stuff or something. Yeah. And I don't think I ever installed a job and cut something, right? I mean, just little ones. I had a little bit of stitches, but whatever.
Yeah, you worked with your hands.
But I'm at that stage now, right, where I've got a couple employees and they're just they look at me like I've never done it, right?
Yeah. You have. Well, that's the reason you're good at your job, though.
Yeah.
If you haven't done it, I mean, I'm not out there pouring concrete, but I've been a sponge to respect those people that are in the trades, to try to respect them, to try to understand them, and therefore I can help, quote, manage them and help them grow as well. Like I'm vested in their success. Yeah. And if people who work with us know that we're vested in their overall success too and their growth, I mean, they're twice as likely to be successful on a job. Yeah. And so ultimately, it's not just our goal to go make money and grow stuff for our customers, but we want to grow the subtrades with us too. And if we do that and we do it the right ways, it's kind of like let's all boats rise in a rising tide. Let's help each other be successful.
Yeah, it's also good to understand everybody too, right?
Yeah.
So when I bought into created this flooring company, 4 or 5 years ago, right? I went to these tournaments. I drove the forklifts. Like I picked up these stupid ass heavy panels and clipped them all together. And we bought 11 floors that were all connected into one in Alabama. And me, a couple buddies of mine, I took out there, and my business partner, right? We were just out, and we hired 55 laborers to rip this floor, all these floors out in like 4 days. And it's like, it was wild to do it, right? But like, it taught me so much to like understand. So when I have a guy that calls me up and he's losing his shit on a job site, right? Like all mad, he's mostly it's outside stuff, right? Wife's mad, something's he's drunk, whatever. Not on the job site, but in life.
Safety violation.
Yeah, don't call me. But it's good because then I can relate to them and be like, yeah, man, that does suck, but here, you just gotta do it like this and blah 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 blah. Like, sorry, bro, yeah, we'll hook you up when you get back here, and then they come back, take them to dinner or whatever, and then tab you again, But like, if you're just in an office all the time, you don't really get it. You don't really get why a guy is throwing his hammer. You know what I mean? It's like, well, dude, it's because this goes really smooth all the time. And then he's run into this one problem that's caused by another trade. And then he's got to go to the general contractor to figure that out. And then the trade's grumpy because he doesn't want to change anything. Then the architect drew it wrong. Like, you need to understand that like nothing's perfect. Yeah. And so you can't just give these guys POs, have them install something, have them invoice you back every single time. There's going to be issues.
Right.
And sometimes you just got to like listen to him bitch and you go, yeah, that sucks, man. Okay, dude. Let me know when you get back. Yeah. All right. Thanks, bro. See ya.
There's a funny story to share with you that kind of is good for reputation. Some of the folks that work at my company know I did this, and so they respect me a little bit more than I did. But I went down to Arizona, and we had the Western Region Director of all construction facilities for UPS coming to the building we were building that next day in Goodyear, Arizona. And we were putting evap coolers on the top, so we had to fly them on a helicopter to do them. They were sitting on the side. It was stormy that day, so we couldn't do it. So we had literally framed these giant holes in the ceiling of this 800,000 square foot warehouse with plastic over them, stapled, until we could get those up there. Well, what came in August, this is August, so there's the massive storms and monsoons in Arizona. There was a massive windstorm, blew all of our plastic off, dumped an inch of rain in like 30, 40 minutes. Yeah. So I just landed. I'm going to go to the hotel and have this meeting at 8 a.m. My project manager calls me, says, hey, he sends me a video. It's like water falling into the building. Yeah. And I'm like, dude, all the things that are going to go wrong, And he's like really, freaking out. And I call him. It's like, hey, it's 6 o'clock at night. We got 14 hours before we have our meeting. Call all the scrubbers that you can possibly get. They're like the little, they're like the ice machines that you ride on the ice to make it flat, but they do them on these warehouse floors to squeegee them all out. So we rented 4 of them immediately, brought them out, hired 2 laborers, and I called the buddy who's mine. I say, I'll pay you whatever we need to pay to get this done. Yeah. For 14 hours, we just scrubbed this thing.
Really?
Yeah. And I brought my clothes in my rental car, and it was like 7:30 in the morning. And we're like trying to finish the last of it. We park them kind of around the side so they can't see them. I run to my car, throw on my button-up shirt. I like try to do a mountain man wash so I don't look terrible. And then we come in there at 8 o'clock. This whole leadership group comes in there walking around. And the end of the tour, it was a woman and she said, this was the cleanest job site I have ever seen. And then she looked at her team and she's like, we need to hire Layton more. And walked away.
Oh, there.
And since then we built 14 jobs for him. But the reality is we could have said, shit happens. It looks like crap in here. Yeah. You're going to have a lot of risk. And we worked for like 14 hours. It was fun. We were blazing music, having a good time.
Oh, yeah.
And so for me, it wasn't a big deal. But that project manager and superintendent started like telling other people that we did this. And so then I'd run into people like a year later and it's like, oh, you did that. You were the one driving all those scrubbers all through the night, weren't you? And it kind of builds a level of respect and rapport. But also like, I get what those guys do. And if you don't understand what some of your employees are asked to do sometimes, you can't respect the load that they have to carry. Yeah. Some of these guys are out at 2 a.m. with concrete pours.
Yeah.
And then they work like 18-hour days and they're not complaining that I worked over 40 hours. I'm going to take the rest of the week at home. They don't do that. They work 80 hours sometimes in a week and then we try to make up for them on other weeks. Yeah. But it's good to understand the sacrifice your people have to go through so you can understand them more.
Yeah, I love that, dude. It's kind of like God washed it. We just squeegeed it after, right?
Yeah, exactly. It was the cleanest damn building I've ever been in.
How many square feet was that thing?
800,000. So it literally had, when I walked in there, 2 inches of water on the entire floor. I mean, it was like, there was like,
and you just push it out
mud
out the doors, right? Basically.
Well, yeah, you do. You squeeze them out, but then it also sucks in the water in those weird tanks, and you drive out the back and release it. By the rain,
okay. I didn't realize it sucks them in. Yeah.
Dude, it was wild. It was super wild.
I hope everyone understands how big an 800,000 square foot building is.
It's pretty large.
It's freaking huge.
It is huge.
Like, I don't even know how you'd quantify it, like football field wise, right? Like,
yeah, it'd be like 4 of them in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just that much water. Yeah. But yeah, funny experience and all is well that ends well, as we say.
So did you, I want to back up to something. I just realized this. So did you help bring Boeing into Utah?
Yeah, I did.
So you brought them into out in West Jordan, right?
I did.
It was the
Craft-made cabinetry building.
So we had a 60,000 square foot warehouse out there. We used to manufacture everything. So you know where Dannon is?
I do. Very well.
Kitty corner from that was our building.
Cool.
And then we sold that and we moved our manufacturing to Indiana. And then we just had that little office, a little 10,000 square foot mixed use off of Bangor and I-15. But
so interesting story, that Craft-made building, they had like 12 showcase rooms where they'd showcase all their different cabinets.
Yeah.
And they're look like offices. Mm-hmm. So when we toured Boeing through the building first, when they built their offices for kind of their lead facility managers for that facility, they all have offices with different cabinets.
Why not?
So someone has the oak and the walnut. And so it was kind of cool to see these people take that building and customize it. And Layton's done 3 phases for them now out there.
Oh, yeah. How big is that building?
It's like 1 million square feet.
Yeah, it's huge.
It's huge.
So we used to drive past it all the time. So we could either go to lunch, we'd either go basically east, right, all the time. So when they started building that, we would just kind of go west and then take Old Bingham or whatever that is. And it was crazy, right? I mean, they're pouring all that slab in place and then tilting up and we're like, what the hell is this business? You know what I mean? Because it was the biggest building there by far. And I don't think Craft-Made ever operated in there.
Well, they did it in 2007. I mean, talk about the worst timing ever for residential construction. Yeah.
Yeah. Because when they shut down, it was like, we never saw a bunch of cars there or anything. And then literally, what year was it that they slapped Boeing in there? We
put Boeing in there 2012, 2011.
Yeah. That sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah. Something like that.
Yeah. For 5 years, it's empty.
Yeah. Yeah.
Freaking insane. He always comes and checks us on us.
Okay. Well, it was kind of fun to be a part of that and to see what they're building. And, every vertical and horizontal wing stabilizer on every single 737 in the world is built in West Jordan, Utah.
Is that it?
Isn't that cool? The rear wings, vertical and horizontal.
So why does that make sense for them to not just expand up in Everett,
Seattle, Washington, or in
Everett?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they're also down in Savannah, Georgia. Well, because labor was really qualified here, they can put them on those trucks. They actually put those wings in a semi-truck in these specialized trailers to haul them.
Oh, really?
So they put out, I don't know how many they put out a week, but they build those there, and it just made more sense to diversify their locations. Yeah. Plus, it's non-union state. The union probably labor rates up in Seattle were very expensive. Yeah. So it just made sense. And they've done so well in productivity in that site that they're growing. So Boeing's saying, hey, I produce more widgets per hour per person in that facility in Utah than anywhere else. Let's double down. That's why they do it.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Gosh, that building's big.
It's cool.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
So what's the biggest building you guys have worked on? Or you worked on, I should say.
A 4 million square footer. We just barely finished it. It's the largest building in the history in Oregon. It's close to $500 million. And it's a robotics center. It's 97 feet tall with 4 million feet of completed space.
How do you get up 97 feet?
You go
Is it concrete walls?
22 to 42 foot wall concrete tilt panels, and then insulated metal panels above that, all the way to the tops. So it was an awesome project to build, the largest building ever built for Amazon, and it's been a super cool project to be a part of.
How long did it take?
It took 18 months.
Holy shit!
We moved fast.
18 months.
17, 18 months. Yeah, and so we just finished it this month actually, and so. Been an awesome project. The team did a great job, and everyone's.
You guys cut the ribbon and everything?
Yeah,
is it open?
It's open.
Oh wow! Did you guys go up to it?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so we had like our whole trailer complex there because.
Why have I not seen on your social media? You never post this stuff, dude.
I do. I need to post more.
You need to post more.
Let's
That's
go.
Cool.
Yeah, it's way cool.
Yeah.
So it's fun to be a part of, and we've done a couple projects that are like 2-3 million square feet. That hospital, it's $1 billion. Will probably be the biggest project we've ever done, but that's like over 8 years, not 18 months.
How many square feet does that end up being?
I think that one's over 1 million square feet, but it's we're tearing down a tower. So it's an active hospital. Tear down one tower while it's active in one tower. Build a new tower. Move everyone in that tower. The new one. Demo the next tower. Build it up. Move other people in that tower, and then demo the third. So that's why they do it in phases, because there's
you gotta keep it going.
You're on a postage stamp in San Diego.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Dude, that's crazy. So do you like an 8-year-long project?
I think it creates.
It's a booking, right? So
it's great, and it's like having a fire, right? We look at it, we kind of think of it that way, and that's a big log on the fire for a long time.
Yeah,
it burns really slow. You don't make a ton of revenue every year. I mean, you do, but like not a crazy amount. But it creates such stability long term.
Yeah.
Fast poppers are really good for making revenue quickly. Same in subtrades.
Yeah.
But if you always have to refill that machine so fast that it can be a challenge. Yeah. So it's good to have both sides. And hospital projects are usually multi-year, and that's great.
So is Amazon still building buildings?
Not as much. Okay. They went so heavy during COVID. They're still doing some, but they're probably doing 10% of what they were doing 2 years ago.
Yeah.
We were their largest builder in North America.
Yeah.
So we had a great ride with them.
How many countries are they in? Most of them now?
They're all over the place. Middle East. They have a huge presence in Poland, of all places. They've got a lot going in Mexico now and Canada, but in the U.S. they have Australia. They're really heavy too.
Have you done a data center for them?
We have not. We've done a data center that they're a tenant of. So we've kind of worked with AWS on a couple data centers, but yeah.
I've heard their data centers are
insane.
Wild.
Yeah, they are. The data center market right now is unbelievable. The technology is so fastly evolving. As soon as you finish a project, the next project has a totally different technology package. It's unbelievable how quick moving that space is. And we're really building a really good amount of momentum in that space. And it's fun to do it. But the amount of data, so there was some statistic that showed 18% of all power utility in the US will be dedicated to data centers within like 2 years. Think about that. And so they need to figure out a better way to be more power sensitive. But at the end of the day, you can't do that with wind or solar. Like it doesn't even compute. If you did your whole roof solar, it maybe covers up 1%.
Yeah.
I mean, they just need so much power utility.
Do you guys ever build buildings with solar on them?
Yeah, we have.
Okay.
Most of them are in states that have a massive incentive to do so, like California or otherwise.
Like Texas, right?
Or Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's usually a smaller building or maybe a parking structure, something like that. It's a little easier.
I do see that a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of that like covered parking, right, has the solar on it.
Yeah.
What's that for? Where are they putting that power to? To the building, or is it
to the building, or put on the grid as like a public?
Okay.
Put on the money, put on the grid that way. These big warehouses, people don't realize, we got 1 million square feet of warehouse, let's just throw solar on it. Well, when you add that much weight to the roof, now you got to beef up all your steel structure inside. So the costs can be like $8 million in increased cost for structure to hold your solar. So they do their math and are like, oh, this does not pencil.
Yeah,
we will never, it'll take us 25 years to even break even.
Yeah.
So they have to have a social reason, like a focus on their ESG goals to be carbon neutral to do it. It doesn't make financial sense yet. I hope it does. I would love to see all these warehouse roofs have solar.
I know. I almost wonder if the solar game's interesting, right? Because we only have like one American manufacturer, I think, that makes panels. And they bring most of them from Taiwan and China.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit from India. India seems to be taking over some of the Chinese manufacturing. But I don't know. I just don't know why they can't get that technology right.
Right now, you're only capturing, 22% of the energy on these new solar panels?
Oh, is it? Yeah.
It's all. So if you had a way to come up with technology that we could capture 40% or 50%, imagine that, though.
Yeah.
That would make it so every rooftop's an opportunity in the world. And so hopefully the next frontier for us in energy independence is really improving solar technology, because wind isn't really going to do it. Hydro, we don't build dams anymore. Yeah. And coal generation, we all know where that's going. It's stable. I think nuclear is in a safe environment is the greatest.
See, that's
generation.
What I think too. I almost think, you have these climate activists, right? They're just losing their shit all the time, right? Like they seem like they're kind of wild people.
Yes.
And I'm always like, I feel like I can't even engage in a conversation with you guys because you won't even talk about nuclear.
Yeah.
Like nuclear power, a small little nuclear reactor can like power like the 11 Western states.
It's amazing.
So it's like, why are we not talking about this?
Well, that Japan, obviously the tsunami that hurt in Japan. I mean, there's a lot of risk areas.
Built like in the 40s?
Yeah, but you go to markets like Phoenix that doesn't have seismic.
Right.
Go to markets that just don't even have it. Now they have other natural disasters, but a heavy windstorm or a tornado is not going to affect a heavily fortified nuclear reactor. Yeah. Don't put it in earthquake states. There's solved the problem. But other than that,
or go put it in Mexico and shoot it up into our place.
I know.
Just kidding.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, I know. I've read a lot about. I think Elon Musk actually was being interviewed, and he was talking about nuclear. Right? He's like, I just can't do nuclear because no one will ever agree on it.
Yeah. And
it kind of took me down a rabbit hole for a couple of nights where I was like trying to learn about nuclear, the best that I can. It's pretty freaking hard to learn about, honestly.
Yeah.
We haven't built a nuclear reactor for
it's been a long time,
like 50 years.
Yeah. Well, in the 70s, they were building them all over the East Coast, and they just, I think like 85% of the grid in France is still nuclear, but here it's like 30% or something like that. Yeah. So I think that would create some more stability. The commercial grade solar, if we could figure out better technology, I mean, that could be the game changer. Yeah. But we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So let me ask you. So anyone listening, right? I mean, so you're actually pretty young. We're both pretty young. You're not quite 40 yet, right?
37.
37. Yeah. So, and you have, you are in a very prestigious position in your company. If someone was to look at you and say, how do I follow that same path? How would you advise them?
And not to use cliche statements, because I people kind of brush them off because you can read them in any motivational book, but like there is no substitute for hard work.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The one thing that I'm really proud of that I think if you asked anybody in my team, if anyone works harder than me, they probably can't. And, and I don't mean that as a braggadocious statement. That was a commitment I made. If you're going to put points on the board and create a future, nobody can push harder than you. Yeah. And so, I mean, if I can't do it by luck, I'm going to do it by will. Yeah. And that's just how it's going to happen. And so I think there's no substitute for hard work. And then, like you and I were talking in the very beginning, oftentimes the differentiation between someone who's average successful and someone who's extremely successful is a few small behavioral habits. Mm-hmm. Your habits define your success. And so if you're, if you're focusing on your trade of getting better and being best in class, I hear that word all the time. And I know it's kind of cliche, but like you need to be best in class in your own life. And it will like magnify in everything. Your relationships with friends, your relationships with coworkers, your job trajectory, your career trajectory. And you have to eliminate those things that just aren't bringing you up. And that's in your workplace too. It's not just in your personal life. In your workplace, eliminate those things that are holding you back. And then never talk negatively. I think it's really important for young people to hear that. Yeah. Don't talk negatively about anybody else in your company. If you do, it always gets back to you. It makes you look small. Mm-hmm. It's like that old saying, small people talk about people. Good people talk about things or events, great people talk about ideas.
Yeah.
And so never talk negatively about others, and work your house off. I mean, that's really the trick. So if you treat people the way you want to be treated and you work harder than anybody else, you're going to have success. Yeah. And it's fun to be part of something that's growing. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you've done it yourself too. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with everything you say. I think you need to, you gotta shut out noise too. Like big time. Right. And I mean like social media and like even gurus at some point, right? Like these guys like yap on stage, right? Like not that they don't say good things too, but like, you know, sometimes I feel like Gary Vee or even Tony Robbins, right? They yell and they say, and like guys get all pumped up. They spend thousands of dollars to go see these guys yap. Then they come back to their normal life and they're like, well, it's like, you are not progressing because you're not an expert in anything.
Right.
Like spend your 20s becoming an expert in something.
Right.
Right. And whatever it is, it doesn't really matter. Right. And then you have to be likable. Likable is one of my big things. Right. And because you work with people that you like.
Absolutely.
You know, especially when you start getting up to our level, right? You're just not going to deal with people you don't like.
Absolutely.
You know, or
100% agree.
guy or like, you know, some dude that's not honest. Like you just can't do it. You can't deal with people who aren't competent, who aren't honest, and you don't like to be around them. You just can't deal with them. Mm-hmm. So, but if you become that person and you become an expert in stuff, I see all these 20-year-olds are like, well, I'm going to create an app. And I'm like, oh, God damn it. If I hear that one more time, I'm going to shoot something. You know, like
I think it's the easy way to riches.
They absolutely do.
Yeah.
And it's like, guys, the graveyard of people who spend their life savings and other people's monies in apps is way bigger than you think it is, you know? Mm-hmm. And no, I don't need an app to pick out my groceries.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I have a wife. Yeah. She just does it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that the guys that like the general population is like, whatever, you know what I mean?
Right.
And I feel like people like they go to college, they think they go to college and then they can come out and they get these signing bonus jobs and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, no, dude, you're not worth anything yet. You have to have a value added skill. Mm-hmm. You know, you have to, organization is going to look at you and say, can this dude add value? Or can this lady add value? You know, I mean, this is a genderless conversation, just an employee that comes in. It's like, if you're adding value, that's when you start moving up that ladder, right? And you start becoming an expert and stuff. And it's like, hey, we need Eric to do this, right? Eric has these relationships. Eric has the knowledge and he's been on the job sites. Like he knows how to actually make this all work. And then once they see kind of your portfolio, right, they'll bring you in and go, okay, great, this is the guy. Then you set that bro loose, right? You don't want to like stick them into a structure, or, you know, like literally that's why you have a slush fund, right? It's just like, go do, Eric, go find these guys and bring these businesses in, you know, and you start knocking down 100, 200, 300, $400 million projects and everyone's high-fiving. Right. And it's because you became an expert. Would you agree?
You're spot on. And your 20s are for learning and your 30s are for earning is how they say it. Or 30s are learning too. You're always learning. Yeah. But to your point, if you're not an expert or at least can create significant value in the conversation, you're not important in the conversation anymore. No. And so you have to always think about how you're creating value. But yeah, to your point, the other thing that I can't help in our industry to think about is the scoreboard doesn't lie. Right. And winning solves so many things in life. Yeah. I can't help but think. So my team, we've got a couple hundred people. And I always remind our sales team, which is there's only 4 of us on the team, and I manage that team as well, that there's 200 families that rely on you to be successful. Don't ever forget it. This isn't you selling houses where it's you just trying to provide for your own lifestyle and your own family. There's 200 people on the back end of this business that rely on you putting fuel in the plane so they can fly it. Yeah. And if you forget that and you forget that you're taking care of people and your efforts aren't just for you, but they're for other people, it creates a higher sense of purpose that I think it shows when you work with customers. Like, oh, you're doing this because you actually care. Yeah. And that kind of echoes into the other thing that I love this statement because it's so true in what we do. Like, people never remember what you told them. They only remember how you made them feel. Yeah. And in our business, that is the most important rule you can know, because no one remembers what the hell I told them 2 years ago in some meeting that was really critical. Yeah. They remember that I made them feel confident, or I made them feel heard, or I made them feel respected, and that they felt confidence that we had their back. If you can leave a meeting after 5,000 words with those 4 things, you're golden. Yeah. And so, the scoreboard never lies. Yeah.
No, I love that. You're 100% right. You got to make people feel good. You know, even when they screw up. Yeah. You know, I've got this guy that works for me, and we were just joking about this the other day. He made a mistake on a job that we did in Oregon, right? It was bad, right? It was bad enough that I left the office to go think. which I think I've only done once. Normally I close my door.
One of those problems.
Meditate my way through this for like 20 minutes, right? And I went and watched Aquaman. I hate that movie.
You were angry.
I was furious. But I was also, I was mad, but I was in the mindset of I have to fix this.
Yeah.
Right? So I was with the company. Have you heard of Kirby Nagelhout?
I have not.
So they're probably the biggest, if not one of the biggest in the education market.
Okay.
Right? And so, dude, we just made this massive mistake. It was like 100,000 plus, right? And at the time it was going to hurt. And I ended up calling the president and I just said, hey, we made this mistake. You switched superintendents. There was an agreement in place. It never got papered. This is obviously ridiculous what you guys are charging us. Basically, we took the installation out of a project and then they hired somebody else and then it cost more than the original contract. I mean, it was like crazy, right? It was the biggest back charge, stupid thing. It was a little unethical, really, right? And I think the president knew that, and we never talked about the ethics of it at all, right? Because we just talked kind of man to man, right?
Yeah, yeah.
This is the situation. I don't think it's fair. At very best, you guys should be taking away the neck. Because this guy already also bid the job. It's like, what did he have in the original installation?
Right.
Like, come on, this is 10 times that. And I said, here's the deal. If we can come to an agreeable number on this, I'll eat it, right? I'm not going to fight you. We're not going to get nasty at all. Just eat it. I said, but I want you to at least give me second look on every project for 3 years. Right. And he said, okay, we can do that.
So you came up with a solution.
Yeah. And I've never spoke to him since. And those dudes have just peppered us with jobs.
That's fantastic.
We've never even needed a second look. They just give them to us.
So you made that hurt. You made that hit back right away with their performance later on.
And another portion of that is very important to understand. We have been doing business with them for like 30 years. And this is the only project that's ever gone sideways. So there's also that history of we were a great performing sub. We had one job go freaking crazy. And honestly, on his side of the table too, they fired the superintendent that was running it. That's why they had a turnover. So
there's some mutual responsibility.
On, right?
Yeah.
And it was, dude, honestly, it was probably a 10-minute long conversation. We just kept it short and now we've both lived up to the expectations. Then we have a beautiful relationship with them.
Yeah. There's so much value in critical conversations.
Yeah.
There's so much value. I even had a conversation with someone, a young man last night, who avoided him. He recently got let go from his company and he had some concerns about his future. And there were some situations he was dealing with. And his comment to me was, this is verbatim. I'm just chill. I'm a chill person. I don't like to have those kind of conversations because that's just not who I am. I'm like, you don't like to have adult conversations? Like critical conversation isn't always conflict. Yeah. Critical conversation is expressing what's important to you, why it's important to you, and what you're going to do to execute. And oftentimes people forget that most times people don't understand what you want.
Right.
And oftentimes, do you even understand what you want? And so I like to start out most of these meetings that are critical. I want to talk about the why, because we're in conflict a lot in our business. Like there's some, and so let's start with the why. Why are you here? What do you hope to achieve from this? And vocalize it so everyone can hear it. Yeah. So we start out with everyone's chips out in front of them. And at that point, you're like, okay, Mark's company needs this to be whole. And if we do this, he'll return it tenfold. I got it. I got you, Mark. Jeff, Amber, these people have these goals. And if we can all hear them out, oftentimes, and they hear why I'm in a predicament, it's not, I'm not trying to not pay you or resolve this because I'm going to pad some bottom line. It's because I got people that rely on this too. So let's like come together. So oftentimes, like this gentleman last night is like, do not shy away from critical conversations. Your whole life, really, the success and trajectory of your life is based on how well you have those. Yeah. There's that old book, Critical Conversations. That's the title of it. It's fantastic. There's like 6 steps of it. So if you want a book to read, check that one out. But
is it called Critical or is it called Crucial?
Crucial Conversations. Okay. You're spot on. Crucial Conversations.
Okay. So the guy that wrote that book, it was actually on my podcast. I grew up with him. Yeah. His name's Al Switzler. He wrote it with a group of guys, but he's one of the guys. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Crucial
awesome.
Conversations.
Crucial Conversations.
Amazing. Yeah. Yeah.
And
I just didn't know if there was a new book.
No. It's my own version of it. Critical Conversations.
It's just how you feel, not what you read.
Exactly. I felt that way. I felt it was critical, not crucial. Yeah. But this young person just avoided hard conversations. And I guess if there's something someone hears right now, run headfirst at them. Yeah. People want to hear and feel somebody in their careers or in their lives and in their arenas, someone who's not afraid to have real conversations. Yeah.
Plus, what people don't get to is like if you're avoiding those, there's an anxiety level that's just clouding you all the time.
Yeah.
Because everyone in their heart or their soul or their mind knows you have to have this conversation. It's right in front of you. You know you have to talk this. So if you're like, well, I don't really want it, blah, blah, blah. You have this anxiety that builds and builds and builds and builds. And what the reality is if you just go have those conversations, that anxiety is gone all the time. So you're actually a lot more free and flowing at work a lot more because you deal with the hard stuff, then you go and take care of the other things, right? Deal with the hard stuff, take care of the other things. And then eventually it's like, yeah, this is pretty easy. You know, got this thing I'm flowing. Yeah. Making this nice.
And one thing too, with young people, they get a little nervous of having critical conversations or crucial conversations with their superiors because you want to grow in your growth. I was never afraid of those.
Yeah.
Uncomfortable conversations to say, hey, here's what I put on the table. Here's what I think I can provide. Let me create a solution. I have an idea. Yeah. Give me this opportunity and I'll return it. And those were very scary. You like didn't sleep at night thinking about those. And then you go have them and they were like not scary at all. No. It was like the most important thing in my career to be able to have those levels of trust. To this day, we have a better relationship because we have. So I don't know, don't postpone or hesitate or delay those meaningful conversations.
And you just hitting with the why at the start. Like I'm literally listening to that thinking like, I need to do a better job at that, you know? Because when you're the boss, right? Like it's
your reason.
Say, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's
always my why. It's kind of, and you don't want it to be, but it kind of is, you know what I mean? And you need people that'll be like, hey, this is also what we need. And then you're like, okay, cool. Like, but I need to probably lead with that a lot better. And that is a very important principle because if you're having those conversations with like, what do you need? What do you need? What's going on here? Let's all just put it on the table, even with your spouse.
Yes.
Right? Or even with your kid. Right? I mean, your kids are a little young, right? To have a real strong opinion on anything, right? But if you can go to them and say, hey man, what do you really need here? What's going on? Well, I don't know. I want to be liked by these 3 people. Okay, well, let's figure out how that happens or even if that's important.
Yeah.
Right? Because you might feel that right now. Let's look 5 years and see if you really care about that, you know?
You're spot on.
Same with work, you know? It's like, hey, what do you want? Well, I want to pay my car off. Okay, cool. Well, let's build a little sales commission around this, and there's just some extra stuff you can do or whatever, right? Let's build your position to make that work so you can pay your car off so you get that pressure out of your world. And then if you create that, right, then bam, you're off to the races. I had an employee, you know, and he was working for me for a long time, and we kind of joke about this in the office, and he would literally never tell me what he wants. He would go tell other people what he thinks that I wanted. And it was like this moving ball. And I used to I'd get so frustrated because I'd be like, and I'd have meetings with him too. Like, it wasn't like, I am not a guy that will avoid a conversation, right? I've had my ass handed to me in conversations. I was actually in the south of Texas one time in front of a school board. It was live on TV and they were just tearing me up. And I was like, yep, we missed the deadline. Yep, we missed it because of this. Now, honestly, it was because of them, right? They didn't have this freaking environmental study that we had to do on the wind or some crap, which I didn't even know existed at the time, right? But this employee of mine, I used to be like, guys would come in and it's like, yeah, you know, he's saying this, he's saying that. And I'm just like, dude, I feel like I am in a black room shooting at a target that I can't see with him,
right?
You know? And I don't know, it's just really ringing true with me. It's like, man, I should have just sat him down and been like, you are not leaving this room until you tell me exactly what you want. And I'm going to write it down because if you change it, we're going to refer back to this over and over and over and over again. It's just you're right. It's just a really, really, really good principle.
You brought up the personal life too. You know, I dated a lot of gals when I was single, and nice. I met my wife only I think like eight years ago or so, and we were early on dating, and it might have been like a month in, and we were spending a lot of time together. And I really remember this, and it was such a game changer in my relationship with her. I came home frustrated about something from work, and I was short with her. She was going to make me dinner that night or something, and I was like short with her. And I was kind of in my own thoughts and I wasn't present with her. And she came to me and she said, hey, the food's kind of cooking. I'm going to leave. You obviously are going through something right now that you first need to identify what it is that's really bothering you. And then when you're past that, we can have this conversation again. So I'm going to leave you here. She walked out the door. I was like, I mean, that was pretty brave, but it also it hit me so hard. I was like, wow, A, this person has extreme emotional intelligence. They recognize that. And B, it's true. I recognized that I was kind of churning through something personally, and it was allowing that to affect my relationships with other people. Yeah. And so understanding the why in personal relationships or work is really the sign of high emotional intelligent people that are happier.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to have a little Instagram post about this later on.
Okay. I love it.
No, I love it, dude. That's freaking great advice. Well, my friend, we are at the like almost 2 hour mark.
Wow. You and I could go for a long time.
I know. I love it, dude. We'll have to get you back on here. We'll have to, now we've got this room with 4 people. We should bring some of the
It would be fun.
Jive. It would be
Yeah,
fun.
it'd be really cool.
It'd be a lot of fun. So I always end these with people giving us their best 2 minutes of advice. So I want Eric Nay's best 2 minutes of advice.
Okay. I think at the end of the day, if you can be one thing, it's to be kind. And that is so important in your conversations with your families, with your spouses, with your friends. There's so many times in life that you can choose a different path. But if you try to be kind, it always gives people that sense that you actually care. And you'll always be thought of better. And so it's something my grandmother told me, and it's always stuck with me. My grandfather told me, never lie, so you always remember what you told him.
Right.
That's always stuck with me. And then, again, there's no substitute for hard work. If you really want something, well, I guess don't pursue any career or job that you don't love.
Yeah.
You're wasting time. If you love it, it's easy for you to invest in it. Mm-hmm. And for me, there's no substitute for hard work in something that you love. So be kind, tell the truth always. So you have integrity, because that matters. It's to your soul, to your character, to your foundation. You have to be sure of yourself.
Yeah.
And then work your butt off.
Yeah, I love that, dude. I'm going to add to that, which I almost never do with this.
I love it.
I think you'll appreciate it. I have this theory, and there's a difference between being kind and being nice.
There is.
Nice is weak. Kind is very, very powerful, right? Because when you're a powerful person and you're kind, and you choose to be kind, you know, and when people mess up, you're still kind to them, even though you're making things happen, you're going through their life. That's why I think that advice is like spot on. You know, I've actually heard that same stuff from my grandparents. Tell the truth, because you never have to worry about what you said.
Yes,
right? Exactly. And then when you're kind to people, it's kind of like the karma principle too, right? But I think when people really find the difference between kind and nice, like, you are a powerful person, and people need powerful people in their life.
Yeah.
You know,
I love that clarification. I appreciate you bringing that up, because it's so true. Like, kindness is not being soft.
Yeah.
Always. I mean, sometimes yes, but it's being relevant. It's being aware. It's hearing and listening, and then also giving them what they need, and being humble enough in your own right to say, I'm not going to fight on every hill, and I don't need to die on every hill. Yeah. Sometimes others can win.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let others win. That's another good freaking principle, right? You need other people to win around you.
Absolutely.
Then you get a group of winners.
And in your conversations, it's important that others feel that they're heard. And sometimes that means they have to win in those conversations too.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, dude, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Yeah.
Dude.
Appreciate it.
I'm so happy you're on.
Thanks for listening to the President McCormack Podcast, brought to you by McCormack Foundation, Saxton Fund, ADP Lemco, and Professional Floor Systems. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast and keep up with Mark on Instagram @President McCormack.